You don't understand her because you don't see her. You see the dream, the illusion, the idea of her. And that's the problem. Schopenhauer warned us that men are biologically wired to idealize women, not to know them, not to question them, to project onto them. And when you project, you don't connect. You fantasize, you chase, you suffer. Because what you're in love with isn't her. It's the version of you think she'll complete. But Jung took it deeper. He said the feminine in your psyche, the anima, isn't just a symbol of your emotional world. It's also a trap. You fall in love with women who reflect the parts of yourself you haven't owned. You call it attraction, but it's compensation. You're trying to feel whole through someone else's presence. And when she pulls away, or changes, or fails to match the goddess in your head, you break. Not because she betrayed you, but because reality did. Because it never matched the fantasy you built to survive. And this is where most men stay stuck, confused, bitter, resentful, not because women lied, but because they were never allowed to be real in the first place. Schopenhauer called it out. He said men live under a romantic delusion, mistaking instinct for intimacy, idealization for love. But Jung showed us why. Because deep down, you're not just chasing her, you're running from yourself, from the parts of you that never learned to be alone without collapsing, from your loneliness, from your lack of emotional grounding. So you romanticize her, you turn her into salvation, you turn her into safety, you turn her into a reason to avoid doing your own work. And that's where the suffering begins. Because the more you need her to save you, the more you'll fear losing her. You start ignoring the red flags. You justify the coldness. You twist yourself into someone more likable, more agreeable, less real. Because if you lose her, you lose the part of yourself you've buried inside her. Schopenhauer didn't hate women. He hated delusion. He hated the way men make women into myths, and then punish them for not living up to it. He called it a lie we participate in, a game we never question, a cycle that keeps us asleep. But Jung said this myth isn't just social, it's archetypal. It's buried deep in the male psyche. The anima is the face you give your own emotional hunger, and you keep looking for it in women because you don't know how to feel safe in yourself. So when she doesn't mirror your fantasy, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel rejected, unworthy, invisible. But here's the truth. She was never supposed to complete you. She was never supposed to carry your unlived life. That's your job. Your pain isn't just heartbreak, it's disconnection from your own soul, from your own power. Because deep down, you've been asking someone else to give you what you refuse to give yourself. Validation, presence, peace. And no one, not even the most loving woman, can sustain that weight forever. That's not love. That's emotional outsourcing. And it always breaks down. Because no one told you this wasn't love. It was dependency, dressed up in poetry, and pain, disguised as passion. You didn't fall for her. You fell for the hope that she could rescue you from yourself. But here's the problem. When you assign someone the job of healing your emptiness, you also give them the power to control your self-worth. That's why one cold look can break you. That's why one unanswered message can ruin your day. That's why her silence echoes louder than your own voice. It's not about her. It's about the part of you that's never been met by you. And the world profits from that emptiness, from the endless chase, from the dopamine loops of false intimacy, from the way you mistake attention for affection. You were trained to seek validation through conquest, but not connection through consciousness. So you keep pursuing women not as people, but as prescriptions. Prescriptions for loneliness, for boredom, for a life that feels hollow. And that's what Schopenhauer hated. The lie, the illusion, the theater of love where no one sees anyone clearly. And Jung, he handed you the mirror. He told you, what you don't own within, you project without. He warned you, if you deny your shadow, it will shape your fate. So here you are, haunted by women you never truly knew, and disconnected from the man you never let yourself become. But what if it's not too late? What if this isn't rejection, but redirection? What if losing her was the first time you had a chance to find yourself? That's the power of awareness. It turns heartbreak into initiation. It turns obsession into opportunity. It turns projection into presence. Because once you realize that no one is coming to save you, you stop waiting. You start working on yourself, on your energy, on the forgotten parts of your emotional life that no woman can rescue. And that is where the real attraction begins. Not the kind that fades when she loses interest, but the kind that deepens because you're no longer performing. You're showing up, fully, unapologetically, finally, whole. You were never taught how to hold your own emotions, only how to hide them, or outsource them, or numb them with love. So you kept searching for someone who could carry what you never learned to hold. Someone to soothe the chaos you buried, someone to make your pain look beautiful, someone to give you permission to feel safe without doing the work. And that's how she became your drug, not because she was toxic, but because she was your escape. You turned her into your healer, your mirror, your anchor. But that's not her job. It never was. Jung called it projection. Schopenhauer called it delusion. And you've called it love. But look closer. You don't really want her. You want to feel whole. You want to stop feeling like a stranger inside your own life. And that journey doesn't start with her. It starts with you. And if this is landing, if something inside you feels like it's finally being named, pause here. Take a moment. Because this isn't just another video. This is a mirror, a doorway, and maybe even a warning. If you're tired of chasing women just to avoid meeting yourself, you're not alone. That's why we make these videos, to hold space for your inner work, not your performance. So if this message speaks to you, hit subscribe. We're building a space where depth isn't optional, it's required, and your presence here matters. Now let's go deeper, because the real question isn't, why do women leave? It's, why do you keep abandoning yourself to keep them? It's in the way you silence your needs, the way you shrink your truth, the way you twist your identity to avoid being alone again. You think you're protecting love, but you're betraying yourself. Jung said the shadow holds everything you've exiled. The rage, the shame, the fear of rejection that's ruled your life. And until you face it, you'll keep attracting people who reflect it. You'll keep chasing chaos because it feels more familiar than calm. You'll keep calling dysfunction destiny because healing feels too unfamiliar. And this is where most men stop. Right here, in the discomfort, in the doubt, in the fear that letting go of the fantasy means facing the void. But what if that void isn't empty? What if it's just your unlived life, waiting? You've spent years mistaking intensity for intimacy because no one taught you the difference. No one told you that peace can feel boring when all you've ever known is emotional chaos. So you fall for fire, for friction, For women who activate your wounds, because that feels like love. You call it chemistry, but it's really recognition. Your nervous system recognizing the same trauma in a different body. And instead of asking why you're drawn to pain, you ask why love hurts so much. But that's the wrong question. You were never supposed to get hurt this often. That's not love's nature. That's the result of calling your shadow attraction. Jung warned us, what you do not make conscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. So you stay stuck, repeating the same cycles, attracting the same partners, falling into the same roles, the fixer, the pleaser, the overgiver, and beneath it all, you feel empty. Not because you're broken, but because you've abandoned the one person who can truly love you, yourself. Schopenhauer said, "A man who depends on the love of a woman for his self-esteem will never be free. He will perform for her, beg for her, lose himself for her. And you've done that, again and again. But now you're waking up. Now you're seeing clearly that this hunger you keep mistaking for love is just a reflection of your unmet self. And here's the twist. When you begin to heal, you won't feel the same attraction anymore. You won't chase chaos. You won't crave validation. You'll start seeking resonance, clarity, truth. You'll stop choosing women who validate your wounds and start aligning with those who respect your wholeness. Not every woman will like this version of you, the grounded you, the boundaried you, the you who no longer folds just to be kept. But the right ones, the emotionally safe ones, they will see you, not as a savior, not as a provider of dopamine, but as a man, not perfect, not heroic, but present, real, and finally, awake. This is the moment where you choose, not between women, but between patterns, between who you've been and who you're finally becoming. Because your life won't change until your standards do, and your standards won't change until your self-concept does. And your self-concept? That's not something you download from books or podcasts. That's something you remember when you stop performing and start reclaiming your presence. Freedom doesn't look like control. It looks like clarity. Like being able to walk away without collapsing, like saying no without guilt, like knowing your worth without needing confirmation. That's where this journey leads, not to dominance, but to sovereignty. Because the true test of your growth is not how much you can get from her, but how little you need her to define you. You don't need to be worshipped. You don't need to be chased. You don't need to be anyone's fantasy. You need to be rooted, steady, clear in who you are when no one's watching. And ironically, that's what makes you magnetic. Because when you stop chasing, you create space for connection. When you stop performing, you become undeniable. Jung called it integration, the process of bringing home the parts of yourself you've exiled, your softness, your anger, your grief, your shame. You stop rejecting them, and you stop needing someone else to hold them for you. You become emotionally available, but not emotionally dependent. You can love deeply, but without leaking, without bending, without needing to be needed. Schopenhauer didn't believe in romantic salvation, but he believed in truth. And truth is the only thing that will ever make you free. You don't need to hate women to wake up. You don't need to close your heart to protect it. You need to see clearly, to know when you're being triggered and when you're being treated poorly, to know when you're chasing love and when you're avoiding yourself. That's maturity, not just emotional awareness, but emotional responsibility. The kind that doesn't wait for someone else to change in order to feel at peace. You no longer look to a woman to heal what your father never gave you. You no longer collapse just because someone left. You no longer abandon your truth just to avoid abandonment. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be whole. And not everyone will celebrate that. Some will say you've become cold. Some will say you're too distant, too independent, too self-contained. But you'll know better. You'll know you're finally living from the inside out instead of chasing the outside in. And that is the beginning of real love. Not the kind that burns fast and dies young, but the kind that stands the test of time because it was never built on fantasy. It was built on presence. So now you stand at the threshold, not of a new relationship, but of a new relationship with yourself. And that's the real love story. The one no one ever taught you how to write. The one where you're not chasing, fixing, or proving. The one where you finally stop running. You stop running from your emptiness and start listening to it. You stop fearing your desires and start understanding them. You stop waiting for permission and start showing up, raw, real, ready. Because this version of you, he doesn't need a woman to feel powerful. He doesn't need rejection to feel humble. He doesn't need chaos to feel alive. He's grounded in truth, and he knows the difference between attention and affection, between performance and presence, between fantasy and real connection. And from that place, you don't date out of hunger. You don't settle out of fear. You don't confuse intensity with intimacy anymore. You bring your whole self to the table. And if it's not met, you leave with your dignity intact. No more losing sleep over mixed signals. No more begging to be chosen. No more becoming someone else just to be kept. Because you've chosen yourself. Finally. That's the liberation Schopenhauer spoke of. That's the individuation Jung pointed to. It's not loneliness. It's sovereignty. And from that place, everything changes. Your standards shift. Your energy stabilizes. You become unavailable to what used to break you. You stop craving chaos because calm no longer feels foreign. And one day, you'll meet someone, not to save you, not to fix you, but to stand beside you. Two full people. No rescuing, no role-playing, just presence, just truth, just love, without the leash. But until then, stay here, in this work, in this awareness, in this quiet revolution where men remember who they are. Because the world doesn't need more performers. It needs more men who've come home to themselves. And if that's you, then welcome back. You're not broken, you're just beginning. And when you're ready, watch our next video. Because some truths don't just want to be heard, they want to be lived. We're not here to shame you. We're here to wake you, to hold up a mirror, and to remind you the version of you that's been waiting is still waiting. But not for her, for you.